My wife cheated on me while I was in a coma, and when I woke up, she was with another man. My name's Lucas, and I'm 28 years old. I've always believed that life is a beautiful journey, filled with dreams and love. My wife Sophia is my everything. We met in college, where we shared late-night study sessions, endless laughter, and dreams about our future. We talked about having a family, traveling the world, and building a life together. Every day felt like a new adventure. I worked hard at my job as a graphic designer. I loved creating things, bringing ideas to life on the screen. Sophia often told me how talented I was, and her encouragement made me strive for more. I remember one evening, sitting on the couch with her, brainstorming ideas for my latest project. We talked about the importance of following our passions and supporting each other's dreams. But that evening, something felt different. There was a tension in the air, an unspoken worry. Sophia had been quieter than usual, and I noticed her glancing at her phone more often. I brushed it off, thinking it was just work stress. After all, we all have our moments of doubt. A few days later, I decided to surprise her with a weekend getaway. I found a cozy cabin by the lake, a perfect place for us to relax and reconnect. I could already imagine the joy on her face. I was excited, thinking this would be a chance for us to unwind and enjoy each other's company. As I drove to pick her up from work, I felt a surge of happiness. The sun was shining, and the world felt bright. I had the music playing, singing along to our favorite songs. But just a few blocks away from the office, everything changed in an instant. I remember the crash vividly. One moment I was driving, and the next I was jolted by a sudden impact. The sound of screeching tires and breaking glass filled my ears. Everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, surrounded by bright lights and beeping machines. Confusion flooded my mind. Where was I? What happened? I tried to move, but my body felt heavy and unresponsive. Panic set in as I struggled to remember the last thing I had seen, but my mind was a blank slate. Days turned into weeks, and I remained trapped in this limbo, unable to wake fully. I could hear voices around me, doctors discussing my condition, nurses moving about, and sometimes a familiar voice. It was Sophia. I could feel her presence, but I couldn't respond. I listened as she spoke, her voice filled with hope and love. "Lucas, I'm here. I need you to wake up. Please, come back to me." Her words pierced my heart. I wanted to reach out to her to tell her I was fighting to return, but my body wouldn't cooperate. As time passed, I began to understand the reality of my situation. I learned that Sophia had been by my side every day, holding my hand and speaking to me. But in the darkness of my coma, I could sense a shift in her voice, a subtle change. The hope in her words sometimes turned into despair. I couldn't help but wonder how long I had been unconscious. I felt like a ghost, watching my life unfold without me. Each day brought new challenges, not just for me, but for Sophia as well. I imagined her sitting alone in the hospital room, her eyes red from crying, trying to hold on to the hope that I would wake up. I realized that my absence was tearing her apart. The more I thought about it, the more I felt a sense of helplessness. I wished I could tell her that I loved her, that I was fighting to come back. But all I could do was listen to the snippets of her life that I could hear. One evening, I heard her talking to someone else. A man's voice, warm and soothing, filled the room. I didn't know who he was, but a pang of jealousy surged through me. "Lucas is strong," he said. "He'll pull through. You need to take care of yourself, Sophia." His words made me feel uneasy, like I was losing something precious while trapped in my own mind. I wanted to scream, to tell her that I was still here, still fighting, but I remained silent. I couldn't help but wonder how long this would go on. Would she wait for me? Would she grow tired of my absence? The thought gnawed at me, filling my heart with fear. In the quiet moments, I reflected on our life together. The laughter, the shared dreams, the small moments that made up our love story. I yearned to hold her again, to feel her warmth and comfort. But as days turned into weeks, I began to feel the weight of uncertainty. What would happen to us? Would I wake up to find that everything had changed? Each passing day felt like an eternity, and the darkness around me grew thicker. I was caught in a battle between hope and despair. I needed to wake up, not just for myself, but for Sophia. I had to return to her, to the life we had dreamed of. And so, I fought. I fought through the darkness, through the silence, hoping that one day I would break free from this nightmare and return to the light of my life, Sophia. The days turned into weeks, and I remained trapped in my own body, unable to reach out to Sophia. While I fought my own battle, I could hear the whispers of her life drifting in and out of my consciousness. She spent every day by my side, but the strain of my absence began to take a toll on her. I could sense her loneliness, the way her laughter faded and her smiles became less frequent. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her that I was still here, but my voice was silenced in this dark void. And as much as I wished I could reach her, I felt her slipping away, struggling under the weight of the world alone. It was during one of those long, quiet nights in the hospital that I first heard the name Daniel. I had known him from stories Sophia shared. He was a friend from college, someone she trusted and leaned on. At first, hearing his name filled me with a sense of comfort. After all, she needed support, and it made sense that she would turn to someone she knew. But as the days passed, I began to sense something different in her tone when she spoke to him. The warmth in her voice, the laughter that echoed in the sterile room, felt foreign to me. I could picture them together, and the thought twisted in my heart. I wanted to scream, to claw my way back to the surface and remind her that I was still alive. But all I could do was listen. One afternoon, I overheard her talking to Daniel. She sounded tired and vulnerable, and I could hear the cracks in her composure. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," she confessed. "I miss him so much, but I feel so alone." Daniel's voice came through like a soothing balm. "You're not alone, Sophia. I'm here for you. You can lean on me." Their friendship deepened as they spent more time together. I could sense their bond growing stronger, and it filled me with dread. I could feel her heart reaching out for comfort, and while I wanted to be the one to give it, I was powerless to do anything. As the weeks turned into months, I felt the changes in her. The way she would smile when Daniel was around, the way her laughter filled the room, those moments struck like daggers in my heart. I wanted to reach out, to remind her of our love, but I remained stuck, a mere observer in my own life. One night, I lay there, feeling the weight of despair wash over me. I heard Sophia's soft sobs and my heart ached for her. She was suffering, and I wanted nothing more than to comfort her. But then, I heard Daniel's voice again, low and calm. "It's okay to feel lost. You don't have to carry this alone." I couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy, a feeling I had never known before. They were becoming closer, and I felt like a ghost haunting the remnants of my own life. I imagined them sitting together, sharing secrets, and in that moment of vulnerability, I could see how easily lines could be crossed. That evening, I lay still, trying to focus on the sound of her voice, hoping to find strength in her words. Then I heard something that made my heart stop. A whisper, low and intimate, floated through the room. "Daniel, I don't know what to do. I feel so lost without him. I wish he was here." Daniel's response was gentle, but it held a promise I feared. "You're strong, Sophia. You can get through this. Just know that I'm here for you, always." The words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. I wanted to yell, to scream out that I was still fighting for us. But all I could do was listen, as the line between friendship and something more began to blur. As the nights grew longer and my condition remained unchanged, I could hear their laughter, their shared moments of comfort. Each time, it felt like a knife cutting deeper into my heart. I could sense the growing intimacy between them, and it terrified me. I was losing her piece by piece, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. One fateful evening as I lay in darkness, I heard them together again. The air was thick with emotion. I could feel Sophia's vulnerability wrapping around her like a fragile blanket, and I wished I could reach out and hold her tight. But instead, I was powerless. Their voices lowered, and I knew I was on the edge of something that would change everything. "Sophia, I care about you," Daniel said softly. "You don't have to go through this alone." I felt my heart race. I wanted to scream for her to stop, to remind her of the love we had built, but my voice was trapped. I heard her reply, her tone filled with uncertainty. I don't know. It feels so complicated." In that moment of weakness, I could feel the tension shift. I held my breath, desperate for her to pull back, to remember us. But then I heard her say, "I just want someone to hold me." My heart shattered as I realized what was about to happen. I lay there, helpless, feeling the weight of betrayal settle like a stone in my chest. In a moment of vulnerability, they crossed a line that would change everything between us. Then came the silence, followed by the unmistakable sound of their lips meeting. It was soft at first, but it quickly grew passionate. My world felt like it was crumbling around me. I wanted to scream, to cry out, but I was trapped in this nightmare, unable to move, unable to intervene. The kiss deepened, and I could almost feel the warmth of their bodies, the way they surrendered to that moment. I could hear Sophia's breath hitch, a sound that once brought me joy now filled me with despair. My heart raced, pounding against the confines of my body. I was losing her, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. As the betrayal unfolded, I was forced to confront the reality of my situation. I was in a coma, and while I was fighting for my life, she was seeking solace in the arms of another man. The weight of the betrayal pressed down on me, and I felt the darkness closing in. That night, I understood that everything I had known was slipping away. The whispers of betrayal surrounded me, echoing in the void, reminding me of the love I was losing while I lay helplessly in my hospital bed. I wanted to fight back, to reclaim what was mine, but all I could do was lie there in silence, haunted by the shadows of my own life. I floated in a haze, the world around me slowly coming into focus. I could hear voices, faint at first but gradually growing clearer. It felt like waking from a long, dark dream. I blinked several times, trying to adjust to the light, and the faces began to emerge. My mother, the doctors, and the familiar yet distant figure of Sophia. Confusion wrapped around me like a thick fog. Where had I been? Why was I here? I felt a weight pressing down on my chest, and 1,000 questions rushed through my mind. The sound of machines beeping filled the room, and I could feel the soft grip of a nurse checking my vitals. "Lucas, can you hear me?" a voice asked, filled with concern. It was my mother. I nodded slowly, the motion feeling foreign, like I was moving through water. My throat was dry, and it hurt to speak. I managed a weak, "Yes." Tears filled my mother's eyes. "Oh, thank God, we thought we lost you." Her voice broke, and I wanted to reach out and comfort her, but I was still too weak. Gradually, I began to piece together what had happened. I remembered the accident, the chaos, the blaring sirens. I had been in a coma for months, but now I was awake. A wave of relief washed over me, mingled with confusion and fear. I wanted to ask about Sophia, to feel her hand in mine, to hear her voice telling me everything would be okay. As the days passed in the hospital, I began to regain my strength. The physical therapy sessions were tough, but I pushed through. I wanted to stand, to walk, to feel normal again. But no matter how hard I tried, my heart was heavy with unanswered questions about Sophia. It was during one of these therapy sessions that I caught my mother alone. I asked her about Sophia, hoping to hear that she had been by my side every day, waiting for me to wake up. But my mother hesitated, and I could see the pain in her eyes. "Lucas," she started slowly, "Sophia has been having a difficult time." "What do you mean?" I pressed, my heart pounding. "Where is she? Why hasn't she visited?" My mother looked down, and I could feel the dread building inside me. "She hasn't been here in a few weeks. I thought she would come back once you woke up," I interrupted. "But what?" I needed to know. She took a deep breath. "Sophia is living with Daniel now." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt my breath catch in my throat, and the world around me blurred. I wanted to deny it, to scream that it wasn't true, but deep down I felt the weight of reality settling in. The betrayal that had haunted my dreams had now come to life. I turned away, my heart shattering. All those nights I had imagined her waiting for me, praying for my recovery. How could she move on so quickly? I felt anger boiling up inside me, mixing with the pain and disbelief. I had been fighting for us, and she had turned to another man. "Lucas," my mother's voice was gentle, but I couldn't look at her. I didn't want her pity. "I'm so sorry." She was scared and alone. "You were gone for so long." I wanted to shout, to tell her that she didn't understand. I had been fighting for our love, while she had sought comfort in someone else's arms. I felt like the walls were closing in around me. My heart raced, and I could barely breathe. I needed to escape this reality. After my therapy sessions, I began to avoid conversations about Sophia. The more I heard, the more the pain festered. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking of all the moments we shared, the dreams we built together. Each memory felt like a dagger, twisting deeper into my heart. In the following days, I tried to focus on my recovery. I worked hard, pushing myself to regain my strength, but every small victory felt overshadowed by the betrayal. I couldn't shake the images of Sophia and Daniel from my mind. I imagined them together, laughing, sharing secrets, building a life while I was trapped in this hospital bed. One evening, my mother sat beside me, and I could see the worry etched on her face. "You need to talk about this, Lucas. Bottling it up won't help you heal," she urged. I turned to her, feeling anger flare up again. "What do you want me to say? That I'm fine with it? That I'm okay with the woman I love choosing someone else?" My voice was sharp, and I could see her flinch. "She left me when I needed her the most." "Sweetheart, she was lost," my mother replied softly. "She thought you might never wake up. It's not an excuse, but she needed support." "Support?" I scoffed. "She chose him over me. She made her choice." The room fell silent, the tension thick between us. I felt tears stinging my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I had already lost so much. I didn't want to lose my dignity, too. That night, as I lay in bed, I replayed every moment with Sophia. The way she would smile at me, the little things she did to make me happy. Those memories were now tainted, and I felt a deep sense of loss. How could she betray me? How could she move on so easily? The pain of betrayal wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. I felt anger, sadness, confusion, all tangled together. I questioned everything I had believed about love and loyalty. Had it all been a lie? As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I knew I had to confront her. I needed answers, and I needed to know why. I couldn't let her absence define my recovery. I had to fight for my heart, even if it felt shattered. The thought of facing her filled me with dread, but I knew it was the only way to begin healing. The next time I saw her, I would demand the truth. I needed to understand how love could turn to betrayal so easily. The days turned into a blur of physical therapy and restless nights. I was determined to regain my strength, but every step forward felt heavy with the weight of betrayal. Each day, I grew more anxious about confronting Sophia. I needed answers, but deep down, I was terrified of what those answers might reveal. After weeks of hard work, I was finally discharged from the hospital. I stepped outside, the sunlight hitting my face like a warm embrace, yet it felt foreign. The world had continued to move while I was trapped in darkness. I felt disoriented, as if I were a ghost wandering through a life that no longer belonged to me. As I drove to her apartment, memories flooded my mind. Happy moments, laughter, dreams we had shared. But those memories were now laced with pain. The thought of seeing her again made my heart race, a mix of longing and dread battling within me. I parked outside, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my courage and stepped out of the car. The walk to her door felt like an eternity. Each step was heavy, burdened by all the emotions I had tried to suppress. I raised my hand and knocked. Moments later, the door opened, and there she was, looking as beautiful as ever. But the warmth in her eyes was replaced with apprehension. "Lucas," she whispered, her voice trailing off as she took a step back. I searched her face for the love I once knew, but all I saw was uncertainty. "Can we talk?" I managed to say, my voice steadier than I felt. She nodded, stepping aside to let me in. The apartment felt so familiar, yet so different. I noticed the little things. The way her books were still scattered, the smell of her favorite candles lingering in the air. But there was a heaviness, a tension that filled the space between us. We sat on the couch, and I looked at her, trying to find the right words. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," I started, my heart pounding in my chest. "I want to understand what happened while I was gone." Her expression shifted, and I could see the emotions battling within her. "Lucas, Please, let me speak," I interrupted, feeling a rush of frustration. "I need to know why you turned to Daniel. I was fighting for you, and you chose someone else." She looked down, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "I know it seems that way, but it wasn't easy for me either. I was so scared, and I felt so alone. I felt anger bubbling inside me." "You were scared? I was the one in a coma. You had no idea what I was going through. How could you give up on us?" "Lucas, I never wanted to give up," she cried, tears welling in her eyes. "I loved you, but I didn't know how long it would take for you to wake up. I thought I was losing you forever. And so you found comfort in another man? I shot back, my voice rising. You turned to Daniel instead of fighting for me? Sophia's face fell, and I could see the pain reflected in her eyes. It was never about replacing you. He was just there. I needed someone to talk to, someone who understood what I was feeling. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. Yet it happened, I said, my voice quieting. How can I trust you again after this? Everything we built, it feels shattered. I know I hurt you, she said, her voice trembling. I can't change what happened, but I want to try to make it right. I want us back. I shook my head, feeling lost. The love I still held for her felt like a flickering flame, but the pain of her betrayal threatened to extinguish it. You don't understand. It's not that simple. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed the life we had together. I'm so sorry, she pleaded. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I was losing you for good, and I panicked. Panicked? That's your excuse? I replied, bitterness creeping into my voice. You chose to be with him while I was fighting for my life. How could you? How could you throw away everything we had? Silence enveloped us, and I could see the weight of my words sinking in. I could feel the tears rolling down my cheeks, a mix of anger and sorrow. I wanted to scream to make her understand the depth of my pain, but instead, I felt hollow inside. I miss you, Lucas, she said softly, her voice breaking. I miss us. I never stopped loving you. My heart ached at her words. I wanted to believe her, to feel that connection again, but how could I? The reality of what had happened loomed over us like a dark cloud, suffocating any hope I had for the future. I need time, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I need to figure out if I can ever trust you again. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. I'll wait for you. I'll do anything to show you that I'm sorry. I just need you to know that I love you. I stood up, the weight of the conversation crashing over me. I don't know if that's enough anymore, I replied, feeling the ache in my heart deepen. I walked to the door, each step feeling heavier than the last. As I stepped outside, the sun felt too bright, the world too loud. I took a deep breath, trying to find some clarity amidst the chaos of my emotions. I realized I was not just grieving the loss of my marriage, I was grieving the life I once knew. The dreams we had shared felt like shattered pieces scattered around me, and I didn't know how to put them back together. Driving home, I felt the weight of uncertainty settling in. Could I ever forgive her? Could I ever trust her again? My heart was a battlefield, torn between the love I still felt and the betrayal that haunted me. And as the sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, I knew I had a long journey ahead, one that would force me to confront not just Sophia's betrayal, but the very essence of love and trust itself. The weeks that followed my conversation with Sophia felt like an endless cycle of emotions. I spent a lot of time alone, wrestling with my thoughts, trying to understand what had happened and what it all meant for my future. The betrayal weighed heavily on my heart, but I knew I had to find a way to heal. In those quiet moments, I discovered that I needed to focus on myself. I began to take small steps toward recovery, not just physically, but emotionally. I started going for walks, feeling the fresh air fill my lungs. Nature became my refuge. Each step helped clear my mind, reminding me that the world was still alive and vibrant, despite the darkness I felt inside. Friends began reaching out, sensing that I needed support. At first, I was hesitant to let them in. I was scared to share my pain, worried that they wouldn't understand. But little by little, I opened up to them. Their warmth and understanding were like a balm to my wounded heart. They reminded me of the good times we had shared, the laughter and joy that life could bring. One evening, a close friend invited me out for dinner. "Lucas, you need to get out of the house," he insisted. "Let's grab some food and just talk. You don't have to go through this alone." I hesitated, but eventually agreed. Sitting in the bustling restaurant, surrounded by laughter and chatter, I felt a sense of normalcy return. I shared my story and my friend listened intently, never judging, always supportive. It felt good to talk, to voice the pain I had bottled up for so long. "Sometimes, we have to lose ourselves to find a new path," he said, his words resonating deeply within me. "You have a chance to start fresh, to explore what makes you happy." That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on his words. What did make me happy? I realized I had put so much of my identity into my relationship with Sophia that I had forgotten who I was outside of it. I needed to rediscover myself. The following days, I took time for self-care. I enrolled in a yoga class, something I had always wanted to try but never made the time for. Each session helped me connect with my body and mind, bringing a sense of peace I had been longing for. I learned to breathe through the pain, to find moments of clarity amid the chaos. I also picked up old hobbies I had neglected: painting, reading, and writing. The colors on the canvas became a way for me to express the emotions I struggled to articulate. Words flowed from my pen as I poured my heart onto the pages of a journal. It was cathartic, a release that allowed me to confront my feelings head-on. As time passed, I began to feel lighter, more in control of my life. I realized that while I still loved Sophia, I could not allow her choices to define my happiness. I started to embrace new opportunities, exploring interests I had put on hold. I took a cooking class and discovered a passion for creating new dishes. It was a thrill to see my friends enjoy the meals I prepared, their smiles fueling my confidence. In the midst of my journey, I met new people who inspired me. One day, while volunteering at a local shelter, I met a woman named Mia. She was full of life, always smiling, and her positivity was infectious. We struck up a conversation, and I found myself opening up to her about my experiences. She listened, without judgment, and shared her own stories of heartbreak and healing. As our friendship grew, I began to see life from a different perspective. Mia encouraged me to let go of the past, to embrace what lay ahead. She reminded me that life was too short to hold on to pain, and that I deserved to be happy again. With her support, I began to feel a sense of hope I hadn't experienced in a long time. The idea of moving forward no longer scared me. Instead, it excited me. I started to visualize a future where I could create my own happiness, free from the shadows of my past. Months later, I found myself sitting in a coffee shop, a warm drink in my hands, and the sun streaming through the window. I looked around at the bustling life around me and felt a sense of gratitude. I had come so far. The pain of losing Sophia still lingered, but it was no longer the center of my world. I was learning to live for myself, to find joy in each day. It was then that I received a message from Sophia. She wanted to meet and talk. A mix of emotions rushed through me: curiosity, apprehension, and a flicker of hope. I agreed to meet her, not because I thought we could rekindle our relationship, but because I wanted to show her that I was moving forward. When we met, she looked different, vulnerable, yet hopeful. As we spoke, I could see that she had been working on herself too. She expressed her regrets and took responsibility for her actions. I listened, feeling a sense of closure begin to settle within me. "I'm happy to see you're doing well," she said, her voice soft. "I never stopped caring about you, Lucas." I nodded, my heart full of compassion rather than bitterness. "I appreciate that, Sophia. I've been working on myself too. It's been a tough journey, but I'm learning to embrace the changes." We talked for a while, sharing our experiences and the lessons we had learned. In that moment, I realized that while our paths had diverged, the love we once shared would always be a part of me. It no longer hurt to think of her. Instead, I felt gratitude for the memories. As we said our goodbyes, I knew I was ready to fully let go. I was no longer defined by my past, nor by the betrayal I had experienced. I was stepping into a new chapter of my life, one filled with promise and hope. Walking away from that meeting, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I was finally finding myself again, ready to embrace whatever came next. The world was vast, and I was eager to explore it, with an open heart and a renewed spirit. Life was waiting for me, and I was ready to live it to the fullest. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next video. See you next time.